This is The New Right, a podcast for the lost arts, reclaiming the literary holy land from the heathen. This is Dan Baltic,
This is Matt Pegas.
and this is episode, I think it's 69, Matt?
I think it might be
Is,
68.
is it 68? If
Yeah,
I,
Oh
all right.
man.
yeah. Oh man,
Almost
right, right,
69.
right.
Almost. If it's not 69, we wish it was. But in any case, we are here with the one and only Adam Lehrer. And it's great to have you on. He is the co-host of System of Systems podcast and the director and
Very
founder
good.
of Safety Propaganda, a media platform, and indeed a writer who has been published in Compact, The Quietus, and a number of other publications, and a general commentator on arts and culture and a fiction writer. Welcome to the pod, Adam.
Thank you so much for having me on the show. It's an honor. And one thing I have to add to my bio there is also elite bodybuilder. That's
There
something
you
that the
go.
fans should know if they're listening and not watching right now.
I can attest to this because we were all on video, and you are
I
quite
even
jacked,
got the
Adam.
gold's fucking classic tank top on
Yeah,
right
no.
now.
There we go.
I actually admit I didn't know that this was part of your resume until getting on and seeing that clearly it is.
Oh yeah. I've kind of like, well, because Alex Beanstalk and we did a record this year.
Yeah.
Um, our band is called Botch Chatification, and it's a sort of conceptual, well, jokes basically. They're jokes, but songs about um, collapsed or failures of male vanity and masculinity, and many of the songs are about plastic surgery,
Okay.
anabolic enhancement, and so forth. And I haven't had any plastic surgery, but I've certainly used a fuckload of anabolics. And anyways, I'm very interested in that kind of stuff. We made an album length music video
Oh wow.
directed by our friend and the artist Bradford Kessler. Everyone should watch that because it single-handedly saved rock and roll this year. And I think it's currently at 26,000 views, but we could blow that up. So, spread the word.
Check it out.
Yeah.
So were you into bodybuilding before it became a big craze, or
Yeah, I've followed the sport since I watched like Pumping Iron when I was a kid, and
yeah,
and like Arnold in that is just that's like the pinnacle of a cool person to me. Just like this hilarious fucking Austrian, ultra charismatic, eccentric weirdo. I just loved him in that movie.
yeah,
But yeah, I've always followed the sport. I only follow two sports: UFC, MMA, and bodybuilding. Um, I was a competitive athlete through high school. Track and cross country. So I was obviously a lot smaller then, but kept up with a pretty intense like calisthenics regimen. And even in my worst drug addict days, I was still I used to like shooting heroin and going for 10-mile runs.
damn. That's
Yeah.
it's a real test of body against substance, I suppose.
You'd think, but like it actually kind of makes sense because you're just anesthetizing every ounce of
Oh,
pain in your
okay,
body. So
fair enough.
like your
Yeah,
endurance goes through the roof. But and then in like my mid 20s, I started lifting heavier weights and I got much bigger. And then COVID happened and I put on the COVID fucking soft 15 or whatever. And then came back with abandon, like started a year and a half ago, and then jumped back on like test and growth hormone and shit. Like last I started the first cycle again last January.
Gotcha.
And
okay.
got fucking ginormous, like really fast.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
it's
it was sick.
I mean, I used to lift back in high school a little bit, and I mean, I have some joint injuries, and so I don't really lift as much anymore, just maintenance stuff. But
Yeah,
I've heard, like the kind of crazy like gains that you can get when you're taking steroids, and it just seems like out of this world. Like
it's
you
not like
just,
magic. It's kind of magic. It's kind of, but the training has to
yeah,
be perfect, the diet has to be perfect, and it absolutely will help you push through different plateaus. But then you have to learn more about this shit, right? So like testosterone, for instance, or deca, these drugs are fantastic for accumulating strength and lean muscle tissue, but they also make you carry shitloads of water. So when
okay,
summer comes around, you're going to want to move that out and then take something to lean up, like whatever, clenbuterol. You also have to know how to come off steroids, which is the main thing that people don't know. They think they
mm,
can just stop taking it and it won't fuck them up.
mm,
But what happens is after a cycle, 2, 3 months, typically 3 months is as long as you'd want to go on a cycle.
mm.
Um, all the excess testosterone, your body no longer is producing it naturally because you're so
Yeah, of
juiced up
course.
with it. So the body, once you stop giving it the synthetic testosterone, the hormones will kick into overdrive, and a lot of that testosterone will then aromatize into estrogen, which is what creates
Mm.
most of the health problems related to steroids, such as like extreme water retention, um, some
I
nasty
see.
liver shit you don't want to think about. You can lose your gains, put on
Yeah,
fat, and then of course the worst and like most notable and immediate thing is
yeah,
getting gyno and like just having like a big set of milky titties.
yeah. Like in
So
Fight Club.
exactly, that was like the yeah, that's like an extreme case of gyno.
Yeah,
But for most guys it's just going to be like the bodybuilder Ronnie Coleman.
yeah. I've heard of him.
Yeah, so Ronnie was, he's like an 8-time Mr. Olympia. The guy's an absolute fucking legend. He's probably the strongest bodybuilder that ever lived. And he's a
Mm.
hilarious guy who is working as a full-time cop into his career as like the best bodybuilder in the world. So he had a big platform. But his like best physique ever was in, I think, 2003. He was fucking monstrous on a level that no one had ever seen before, and just like shredded. But his fucking gyno was so bad that he just looked like he had two African fucking tribal nipples sticking
Oh,
out into the
jeez.
ether. But which usually would get you docked for points. But he was so good that I guess they just kind of overlooked it.
I see.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't mean to linger on bodybuilding too much.
I
It's not
know
what
it's a
this pod is
fascinating. It is
about.
kind of fun to get
But
into.
No, it's interesting.
yeah, the so like the kind of like the hat trick, the impossible thing to do, they say naturally, is to put on muscle and lose fat at the same time without steroids. Can that
Absolutely.
be
Well,
done?
I mean, it probably can be, but your genetics have to be so superior that it's like, let's say 99% chance that it's not going to happen. Even putting on muscle while you're in a calorie deficit on steroids is going to be hard, you know?
Yeah,
I mean, the best bodybuilders in the world, when they're dieting for a show, they are going to be losing. They're
yeah,
losing all their fat, but they're also going to lose some of that muscle tissue too.
yeah.
Um, so yeah, that's the trade-off. There are some like absolute fucking freaks. Like I know Phil Heath was able to still put on muscle. Phil Heath, he was like Mr. Olympia from 2010 to 2017 or something. But he
Okay.
put on muscle when he was only eating 1,500 calories a day. He'd still be putting on
Oh
mass.
wow, that's incredible. I mean,
Yeah,
especially if you're a big guy.
yeah.
Like,
But that's just like this guy's like these are like superior. These are like gifted
Genetically.
fucking
yeah,
people. 99 guys out of 100 can take the exact same fucking drugs, eat the same shit, and train the same, and come, myself included, and come nowhere near what those guys achieve.
Hmm.
Because at that level, it is going to be mostly genetic. Same
Yeah.
thing as any sport, I guess.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Um,
The, the
Dan,
battle
if you don't
between
mind,
nature and nurture. It's that's something we talk about a lot, and nature won that one, it
Yeah,
seems.
genetics are a motherfucker, you know?
Well, you were saying, Matt?
yeah, going off the outline here, but I think it's
Yeah.
probably okay. Adam, I'm curious, like, if you could comment on you're an artist and a writer, these creative pursuits and like life of the mind pursuits, but also a bodybuilder, as we've been talking about. So I was curious if you could comment on the kind of relationship between the two things. You could even make it, if you want, like a personal history question. How did you, as an athletic teenager, end up going to school for theory? I believe it was you were studying philosophy and
No,
such.
no, no, no. I initially went to school for photojournalism and then
Okay.
went got a master's in art history at NYU.
Oh, master's in art history. Okay.
Yeah.
Nevertheless, yeah, just generally commenting on the relationship between those two things. Obviously, a lot of bodybuilders aren't writing or making art, and a lot of art. Obviously, to look at any hip cafe or whatever, you can tell most artists, writerly types, are not bodybuilding. So it's
Yeah.
important to you to kind of bring out both things.
Well, I think there's multiple ways to answer this question. The simplest answer is I think it's good to have a lot of interests. You know, I've never
Yeah.
been a specialist. I'm more of a generalist. And when I get interested in something, I basically just absorb the entire history of it.
Yeah.
You know, that includes Viennese actionism, that includes surrealist theater, that includes bodybuilding, that includes mixed martial arts,
Yeah.
whatever. Um, but the other thing is like I don't see that much incompatibility between this kind of sports that I follow and like the arts,
Yeah.
right?
No, I
Like,
definitely don't think it's incompatible.
yeah,
You don't see it as much as perhaps we should.
right,
Yeah.
right. You know, because what was always cool to me, like watching the bodybuilding videos, or someone like Conor McGregor, or, is like they are weirdos. You know, these are eccentric fucking people following something that is going to be alienating to the vast majority of people. You know, bodybuilding has a lot. It's like two things. It's either guys who it's a lot of like failed athletes, right? It's like guys who didn't make it in football, didn't make it in hockey, fighting, whatever. Um, and then it's guys who maybe never played any sports, but just like got picked on and smoked weed in their garage and started lifting
Yeah.
weights so they could be a bit more imposing. So I always liked the there's this I have this novel concept that I'm tying this all together and it's going to be a horror novel set in professional bodybuilding, but
Oh,
Hmm.
nice.
yeah. It'll be like I have to write one book and then it'll be like the next thing I do after that. But I there's an inherent pointlessness to bodybuilding, right? And there's like a homosociality to it that makes it kind of funny and strange. Because at the
Yeah.
end of the day, these guys are fucking killing themselves, literally often, right?
Yeah.
Like three fucking bodybuilders died this year before they were 50.
Mm.
Um, for a sport that at the most they could possibly make is like between endorsements and if they're like winning top shows, the most these guys could make is like a mil a year, a couple mil a year.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas like there are fucking bums in the MLB with like 195 batting averages that are collecting 15 million, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like, why do this? Why fucking do this? And it has to just be this kind of like desire to be seen, but also like this sort of performative sentiment. Because at the end of the day, all that work is just going into the 15 minutes when you're out there fucking doing the lat spreads and the front double biceps for a crowd of men. you know?
Yeah.
you know, it's hilarious. And and the UFC too, I think is it's a very creative sport because the the best guys can't just be the best at winning. They have to win over the fans too. Like, do you guys follow UFC at all?
A little
Not
bit,
really,
yeah.
but but
So
I mean, I took Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in
oh, sick.
college as a club thing. So yeah, I'm
Sick. Yeah, I did a little jujitsu back in the day myself, but I haven't trained much fighting otherwise. But last week, for example, there was a humongous fucking upset. The
oh yeah, I
biggest
saw
in
that.
you. I made $3,000 on a $300 bet
Wow.
because I did due diligence and voted for the hilarious white guy over the seething, coping,
Yeah.
Zoomer baiting black man. And but yeah, so like Izzy, you know, who lost the belt, undeniably elite fighter. 3 years defended the belt, beat basically everybody great in the fucking division. And still fans absolutely fucking despise this guy because he has a really, really he seems like deeply uncomfortable with himself. He doesn't say anything that's like interesting or provocative. He
Yeah.
signals corny shit. Whereas, Connor McGregor, that dude hasn't really been like his prime for years now. And yet he's still fucking, if he did a UFC pay-per-view on Saturday,
Yeah.
it would likely make $5 billion and be the most watched sporting event of the year. And
Yeah.
that's not just because of how great he was, it's because he was fucking hilarious, provocative. You just like loved this guy. And the people who didn't love him hated him in a way that was also interesting because like there was something so unique about a guy going to like legends of the sport, having no respect for them, knocking them out in the first fucking 10 seconds of a fight. I remember that one thing he said. It was absolutely genius where when he was about to fight Jose Aldo and he's just off the cuff riffing and he goes, if this was a different time, then I would ride into your stinky favela on horseback and I'd kill every man who could not work. But since but
Wow.
since it is this time, I will kill you in the ring on Sunday. And I was just like, he kind of got me into it. And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
there's different ways for this shit to manifest itself. And some people are great at one thing, some people are great at another. But I feel a lot of affinity with a lot of these athletes. I feel like they're one of us in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, I think it's something that like obviously BAP has turned a lot of people onto how relevant bodybuilding can be. I don't know. Growing up, I just viewed it as very much like another sort of like meathead type sport, which obviously it almost definitionally is.
Yep.
But I think you're right. I think it's a really eccentric sport, kind of like wrestling is in a way too. It's not. I mean, it's obviously Chad in a certain sense, right? But it's I don't even want to get into these stupid meme archetypes, whatever. But yeah, it's like it's an outsider sport, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
And along with that, obviously, I don't even probably really need to list the number of writers and artists who have had interest in bodybuilding or adjacent things. The obvious examples, Mishima, BAP's a modern example. We've been talking about it the last
Hemingway in boxing.
Hemingway with boxing, Harry Crews, if you're familiar with the Southern writer, we've been
Of
talking.
course.
Yeah, yeah, he was into all kinds of weird martial arts and just a general like body obsession. Runs through with a lot of eccentric artist types, and bodybuilding is that manifest.
Bronze Klein was a third-degree black belt in Taekwondo.
Yeah,
No shit.
Yeah. I
Franz
mean,
Klein. Yeah, he.
Oh,
there's
the
definitely
abstract, the
something.
abstract painter.
Right. Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Just making sure. I was gonna say painter, but
Yeah.
There's definitely something to be said about it being an artistic temperament that makes you, pursue something that, is not going to be remunerative, like you say. You just, why do you do it, right? And if you're doing it because you want to achieve something that shows people something, I mean, that's being an artist.
I'm obsessed with obsessiveness,
yeah, yeah,
I definitely have it, but I think anyone who is willing to risk so much just for this sort of almost ephemeral goal, but it feels
Yeah.
real to them is amazing to me. Um and you know, being able to focus on something, bring it to fruition, ruthlessly pursue it. If everybody had this kind of mentality, the world wouldn't be as much of a steaming pile of shit as it is. Um,
Mm.
the biggest fucking issue in the entire world is inability to commit. That is the spiritual malaise of millennials, of Zoomers, even of fucking Gen Xers to a large degree. They cannot fucking commit to a
Mm,
dream, a path, a vision, a fucking wife, whatever.
mm,
It's and
Huh.
with that sort of, you need that as a human being. You need that binding essence of something to strive towards.
mm.
It's almost like a cliche or an inanity to say these things, because this is the kind of shit that our like elementary school teachers would have told us, but they were right. And somewhere along the
Yes.
line, people forgot about these sort of elemental truths about being a human.
I completely agree. Like these are things that do hit some as platitudes, but like I think that you're right that like people know that these things in theory are good. Committing, positive thinking, dreaming big and pursuing it ruthlessly. Like people know this, but they don't actually do it. And I've been thinking about that a lot recently as well. I'm super into like I know you're friends with like well, I mean you're part of the whole NPC Fest crowd, like my friend, like meme analysis and some of these other folks and the kind of anyway, what I'm trying to say is I'm into the sort of some of the occult topics, and a lot of that stuff boils down to just affirmative positive thinking and like this stuff that sounds like Oprah. Which book are we looking at here? You're showing to the camera.
Austin Osman
Austin.
Spare.
Yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't even know that much about Spare, but I know he did work with sigils and like all there for as like mystical as occult stuff gets, most of it boils down to clarifying your will and going for it in your mentally first, but like pursuing it ruthlessly. That's all
Mm.
it is. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, so many men today are just afraid. Man, people are afraid to stick up for themselves. People are afraid to get in a fight.
Mm.
Um, I hate to just go on and on about the cucking of men, but it is a huge fucking thing. I mean, for
Yeah.
years we just
Mm.
let women make up rape stories about us,
Mm.
and would freak out and apologize even if we were innocent, you know.
Yeah.
I think and when you act like that, people don't respect you. And why would they? There's nothing to respect about someone who can't even defend themselves or what they believe in.
Mhm.
Hiding what you think. All these things are connected. Shit, I was like this for a long time. It wasn't
Mm.
until God, like 2015, that I actually started just uh presenting who I actually was to or at least a persona based on who I am to the public. But um and even in then, it was just because I really didn't have any other choice at that point.
Mm.
uh but yeah, if like it's really even, a lot of this shit is completely fake too. Like I think people think if whatever, they're outed as this, then their life will go haywire in these ways, but it usually doesn't. You'll probably lose a few
Yeah.
friends, but how many people are actually worth keeping around if they can't even look you in the eye to see who you really are?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I have to jump in because this has reminded me of your article about Hunter Biden and Hunter Biden as an artist and how he you theorized, and I think you're right here, found a sense of wanted to be discovered. He, took this laptop and he, must have known on some level that, he's Hunter Biden. This will be seen. This will be, discovered. And how freeing, in some sense, that must have been. And so, as I'm reading this article, I'm thinking, okay, so Hunter Biden, this guy he's an anon.
In a lot
he's
of ways, yeah.
he's like us in some respects. And
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, why don't we get into that article a little bit and how Hunter Biden has the artistic temperament.
Yeah. I mean, I had really I mean, besides its political ramifications, I didn't have much interest in Hunter. And the project was sort of I got contacted um like last March by um someone who actually used to teach me, but is starting a publishing company. And if I said the name, people would know who it was. But I had just finished a novel, so like the last thing I wanted to fucking do was write another book. I was like working on music, and I just thought I'd like, you know, do some other weird projects for a while to keep me busy. But then he brings up this Hunter Biden book, this angle that
Mm.
he wanted to write himself, but he didn't think he was like the right person for. And then I was like, oh, I don't know. And then he told me what I'd be making, and I was like, okay, I'll do it.
There you go.
But yeah, so I've just had to like research through his laptop like a shitload,
Yeah.
and I don't know, it made me see him differently. There's a lot of things to relate to about him. He's not completely unintelligent, even if he's not super bright, but I mean the same thing could be said about me or like the vast majority of people. Um, he has in a lot of his text messages, there's sort of this quality where he's often reaching out to people to see if they'll actually talk to him, and then they just bring up something about his dad or something about politics. Even his prostitutes, he's often trying to engage them on an intrapersonal level. And I started to feel something resembling more empathy towards him. Then I found out this story from a source that when Hunter and Bo were like 10 and 8 respectively, him and his brother,
Mhm.
their birth mother had just died,
Oh
and
yeah.
they were mourning over her corpse. And Joe brought in a little media circle to photograph the kids while they were, mourning the death of their mother. I found that to be a very rich, like, uh, rosebud moment.
Mm. Yeah.
The things, the metaphor for his entire malaise. He probably does have this pining for freedom, but what the fuck is he gonna do? Like, you're a Biden, you're gonna be doing something, and if you're too shady and fucked up to like work at the White House, you're probably gonna be the one being paid millions to do overseas fucking deals with Ukrainians and chinks and whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then I saw that story that of course they were using his paintings to basically launder campaign finance money,
Mhm.
Yeah.
which is like what we all knew was going to happen, right? So, and then I thought it was very funny because like the paintings are so horrible, we know anyone who's buying them is they have an ulterior motive. But
Yeah.
I thought if they showed his photographs, his iPhone portraiture and self portraiture, that would be an easier case to make, that there was a legitimate artistic idea in these images. Because let's face it, all of us have stared at those images in awe and shock for a long period of time. They have some interesting formal elements. There's this Dash Snowish quality where he's like constantly just fucking hanging cock all over the place, even though
Yeah.
this guy is like a skinny fat drug addict, and he just can't stop himself from like photographing his dick naked. There's just something there. And I
Definitely.
don't know if it makes you think that he specifically has many layers or more layers than we thought. I think it just reminds you that all human beings usually have more layers than we, consciously give anybody credit for.
Yeah. I mean, what struck me as I'm reading that was the extent to which social media and having cameras in our phones has to some extent awakened the artistic temperament in all of us. And so suddenly you're thinking, or maybe not the artistic temperament, but I remember I don't know if you follow the Good Old Boys, but they had a podcast with a I don't remember the professor's name, but he's a German professor who was talking about a concept called prophilicity. And he just coined that, and he describes it as the modern kind of temperament where we see ourselves in the third person and kind of think about how to market ourselves and how to build a kind of like marketing campaign around oneself. And that strikes me as not only something that Hunter Biden maybe has a bit of in himself, but yeah, all of us, like like especially like frankly myself, having like started a Twitter account which has grown to like a medium level of popularity. I'm just like suddenly like walking around, I'm like, oh, that would make a good picture with a funny caption, and that would, and in a way that's not really myself exactly. I'm talking about other things, but it is still filtered through it. Like, well, this is the persona I'm using. This
Well,
is the
absolutely. I mean, yeah, I very consciously use a persona, partly because partly it's like self-protection. Because how I
yeah
am at home with my wife is, how is, I'm not going to be
yeah
rifling off slurs and,
yeah
spewing some avant-garde hate mongering, just when I'm at home eating dinner. But it's good to express that side of myself anyways. But I think what's interesting with Hunter though, because you're right, like, I studied photography and that was initially what I wanted to do.
mm,
Is but like 5 or 6 years ago I just couldn't. It's so hard to justify fine art photography when we're so flooded with images to begin with.
yeah
But what's so unique about Hunters is that these photos weren't being posted. So
Right.
like he at least consciously was holding on to these pictures, even if there was the Freudian element of like, God, I want to get caught, please let me out of this life.
yeah
um so it's almost like we're seeing, it's like are you familiar with the Vivian Girls, not the band, the manuscript?
I am not, no.
Yeah.
Okay, so the Vivian Girls, uh okay, this is like a fucking thing, so I can prepare too. All right, so the Vivian Girls is a 16,000 page manuscript that
Wow.
was located after the suicide of a Chicago janitor by the name of Henry Darger.
Hmm.
No one knew that this guy was an artist. He was just a lonely janitor. Most of the doctors said they didn't even remember who he was when asked about his death.
Hmm.
And he created this sprawling set of drawings and stories of internet connected tales all about these girls, the Vivian Girls. There's some dark shit in there. They're kidnapped, they're raped, then they overcome, and then they become
Huh.
these like powerful murderers, whatever. It's a fucking insanely visionary piece of work that
Hmm.
was never, ever, ever meant to be seen by anybody. This guy was just venting. And
Huh.
that element of of outsider art or art brood or whatever the fuck we want to call it is super interesting to me, because
Hmm.
I don't have that Sigma aspect. I need to be, I'm like so self-obsessed that like if I do something I just have to put it out there immediately just to see what people say about it.
Yeah.
But there are these more true, like these pure artistic spirits who truly do just do the work to fulfill some personal purpose. Henry Darger, and I'm not gonna put fucking, I'm not gonna put Hunter Biden on Henry Darger's level. I mean, those drawings are selling for like $1 million a piece now, but um, it is interesting that he did create this like huge archive of sort of like mesmerizing, dirty, very self-destructive images
Yeah.
just to document it for himself, as a record. It's almost like he's keeping a record of his personal life to remind himself that he actually has one,
Yeah.
because in politics you don't really exist. You're an image. You're like a projected uh bite of information that is solely created by the media. It's like, certain people are like powerful enough to sort of transgress these limitations, i.e., Donald Trump, probably the only one of our lifetime. But I think that has to be suffocating in a way that guys like us probably can't really even begin to wrap our heads around it. And Hunter didn't have a choice. That was the life he was fucking born into. So I think that does give his work all these sort of contradictory qualities, these dualities that it's almost like watching something like 90 Day Fiance, where it's like a trash reality show, but if you watch it on ketamine, you realize that show says everything about the world that we live in right now.
Yeah.
It sort of has that quality to it.
No, definitely. I mean, that's one thing your article kind of turned me on to. Like, I never really thought about why Hunter Biden took these pictures. And I think you're completely right that it is some like, yeah, I guess you'd call it an artistic impulse, but whatever it is, it's certainly a deep-seated impulse that he just probably followed without thinking much about. I think there is that Freudian thing you mentioned of, maybe on some level he wanted, to exhibit this stuff. But that's what's kind of shocking. Part of what's shocking about the pictures is they seem so casual. This is just, what it's like to be him.
Yeah, I actually know one of the call girls.
Really? Yeah.
She's Weed Slut 420 in the documents, but she actually hangs out at all the art openings here in New York. So I'll have to interview her for this book, but the family's getting insanely litigious these days, so the interviews have been kind of harder to come by than they maybe would have a year ago.
Really? You've had people who've had to turn you down for interviews?
Yeah, it's been like impossible to get in touch with the guy who found it, who Hunter retardedly handed the whole laptop over to repair. I'm like, bro, why the fuck would you give it to why wouldn't you just go to the Apple store where they have like contracts? They can't actually go through your shit. Anyways,
that's what you gotta wonder if there was part of him who wanted it.
Yeah. But, I mean, like most criminal psychologists would say that there was like a desire for him to be caught,
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And I've heard, obviously you're in the New York area. I know a lot of people like who are kind of involved in the greater art scene there say, they knew people who knew Hunter, like he was this known quantity when all this was going on.
Yeah, just like one of those guys you would hear like, oh, she fucked him, blah blah blah, like he collected art sometimes, and he liked to be part of it, he liked to rub elbows with it and fuck the ladies there, more power to him, I suppose.
Yeah. This question may not be the most articulate because I'm somewhat new to your work, I'll admit. But in reading up on, I know you work a lot with Alex Beanstalk, and I'm also kind of new to Alex Beanstalk's work. But I know he's a very contemporary, like internet age type of artist, where he, I think he's been described as kind of collecting bits of digital ephemera. And these somewhat pretentious sounding words, but that's kind of my impression of his work, as he's trying to, frame stuff that wouldn't immediately come to mind as like fine art. And he's a very innovative thinker. The whole finance punk coinage, framing these things that these bits of digital ephemera that wouldn't necessarily be thought of as fine art, reframing them as such. And I guess what I'm trying to ask, and I gather you know, you're on that wavelength as well. And I mean, do you draw a connection between that sort of consciously artistic mindset and the kind of thing that Hunter Biden was doing, you know, just throwing pictures on a laptop? Is there something to this the casualness of our digital lives that, you know, you would you draw that comparison, or am I kind of connecting two unrelated things in your realm?
Well, I mean, Beanstalk and I are both sort of like, we were kind of like proper art world people that were pushed out.
Yeah.
You know, he was, you know, it was only 5 years ago. He was getting in big shows, and I was doing a couple shows, but just because of like our unfiltered nature, it was never gonna pan out. But yeah, he's like one of my best friends. We have a band together. Uh, we're very different in a lot of ways, but we make each other laugh.
Yeah.
Um, as far as like Hunter Biden's connection to that, I mean, I'm a firm, you know, I fuck with Duchamp, you know.
Yeah.
I think, you know, like I'm constantly interested in anything that can sort of, you know, Duchamp's like the primary example. You put a
Yeah.
fucking
Reframing
toilet seat
sound
in the
art.
gallery and people say, "Why the fuck did you do this? This isn't art." And then the very art gesture itself becomes that antagonism in the discourse. And this can happen in a variety of ways. Anything that can sort of rupture the spectacle, right? It can happen in video games. It can happen in cinema. One thing I think I always try to clarify is that safety propaganda is like it's a postmodern art project to a large degree, but to me, I'm much more interested in postmodernism as a concept for like when pop culture, when works of mass media subvert the limitations of their own form and are embedded with some avant-gardist sentiment. Much more than I am sort of proper postmodern art, which is just like artworks that are influenced by the mass culture. And I think on that level, I mean, Hunter Biden is probably like one of, along with like Donald Trump and Kanye West, and, you know, probably one of the most important art figures of our time, just because his name begets a certain sort of massive reactions, you know, whether it's just like, fuck that guy, he's a fucking degenerate scumbag, lying fucking criminal, which is true, or he's just a sad lost boy who, you know, needs more love or whatever, which is also true, but whatever. These and this is the language of our day, you know. We're always trying to decide like, is what's the art form of now, and people just don't like the answer because it's kind of, you know, depressing. It's not cinema, it's certainly not literature, it's not even really video games, even though for a while it seemed like that might be the thing. Discourse itself, internet discourse, is the artistic language of now.
Yeah.
Reverberations of information and conversation bouncing back and forth one by one. It's what we're all mired in. That's the things, those are the unifying events. You know, in the 90s, our parents went to see Pulp Fiction, and then at every fucking dinner party for a year, did you see Pulp Fiction? Holy shit, the fucking Gimp, Zed, holy fuck. Amazing. Now we go to parties and people are like, did you see what whatever fucking retard online said to that person? And then all the comments, and like, that is what
that's
our
a
world
really
is.
good point. It's
Yeah.
like, did you know, you hear that? How often do men think about the Roman Empire?
Yes.
Something like that, which is just like perfect. I mean, like I'm talking about it with my girlfriend. It's going on online and everything, and it's just like, it's, you know, these questions, these, you know, selected bits of discourse are actually pop culture. now, which is crazy. But in some ways, and it was kind of like always that way, I feel,
Yeah,
because like I think back to like middle school, I think we're about the same age. So when I was in middle school, The Simpsons was really popular. And I remember sitting around the lunch table, and maybe it's a male thing, I don't know, but like guys would quote The Simpsons to each other. And we would,
absolutely.
yeah, we
South
would try
Park.
to, South Park, yeah. And
Yeah.
it's just like those selected bits of discourse just really, they resonate and you just repeat them and it carries. And now it's like kind of the culture has been stripped of the rest of the show. The show
Well,
doesn't exist. There's no more Simpsons. There's
well, think
only the
about it
bits of
like this,
discourse.
right? I think a great, people called the Oppenheimer Barbie thing. They were idealistically calling it the return of cinema.
Yeah,
But what was really rupturing everything was the meme of those two movies
yeah,
as a tandem joint meme. I saw
yeah,
them both, uh, but that's the thing that's going to be remembered. And that's the thing that kind of made it linger. Usually, I mean, there's been like
absolutely.
amazing films that have come out over the last few years, right? But like, it seems like for instance, um, when I saw Beau is Afraid earlier this year,
Yeah.
I I loved Hereditary. I hated Midsummer, so I was going in with sort of like, how will I feel about it? Feelings.
Mhm.
Uh, and I was fucking blown away. Like, I couldn't believe that this this guy, his third movie is this 3 hour visionary psycho horror about misogyny. Like that, I was thrilled by it. Like, this guy's actually on a big stage dealing with a male sort of anxiety over and contempt for women, i.e. the mother, whatever.
Right.
I was sure that it was going to have um I was sure that it was going to be discussed for a while, positively and negatively. And surely it was discussed positively and negatively, but for like 4 fucking days. It was
Yeah,
like 3 weeks later, the film was already streaming on Apple TV. I'm
Right.
like, what the fuck?
And
yeah,
very discussed for a short period of time and by very few people. I still know people who haven't seen that movie yet, despite being interested in Ari Aster, because they missed it in theaters. It's kind of a time commitment, 3 hours. And then I think to stream it, it was like $20 for a while. So it bombed for A24. It's really a tragedy. I liked it a lot as well. But yeah, it's sad. Ari Aster was given this chance to make a grand artistic statement. I think he succeeded largely. Like I don't think it's a perfect movie, but I'm a fan.
mm,
And yeah, no, it made absolutely no impression. It wasn't a meme, certainly in the way that Barbie
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
I'm
And
one of those
Okay.
guys because like I saw both of the first two movies. I did want to see this, but I missed it in theaters because I just found out about actually from you, Matt, too late. And I saw it's on on Amazon for $20. I'm like, fuck that, pay
I
twenty
think it's
dollars.
still it may still be that expensive too. I
yeah, it
So
it it probably
case in
gets its
point.
rental date like in a pretty soonish,
must
probably.
be. I mean, gosh.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it's just like shocking the extent to which just things come and go. For better or for worse, it's just we live in such a rapid world that the only thing that can actually keep up with the pace is the internet. I mean, the internet defines the pace and it sets the pace, and it's what keeps us up to pace. So it's hard, and certain mediums are better suited to it than others. So
Yeah,
unfortunately, I would say that yeah, social media is the language of now, and basically has been for a very long time.
Yeah.
yeah. I was listening to, I think it was your pod, Adam, with Kazemi, and it was possibly our pod with Kazemi. I forget. It was a pod with Kazemi,
Because Emmy's been on
and
a lot in the
yeah,
past couple weeks.
and he said something to the effect of people live in different social media worlds. So there's people in like the Twitter world, people in the Instagram world, people in the well, I God, I hope there aren't people in the LinkedIn world. But it's
There are, yeah.
yeah, it's kind of like fracturing our reality along these user interface lines, which is crazy.
And he is right about that. But I think one thing Alex discards is how absolutely fucking bigger this shit is than we actually think. I get fan letters from people in fucking Burma. Like, I'm like, how the fuck do you have the internet, let alone know how did you follow me? Like, it does reverberate very, very far. And what's so scary to think is probably some of the most famous artists of the 20th century. I hate thinking about this because it's fucking terrifying. Like, if you didn't follow contemporary art in the 50s, you probably wouldn't know who Otto Mule was. The vast majority of the public, except for sophisticated bourgeois people, would have no fucking clue about that shit. Us, however, our names are probably known by fucking thousands of people that we have no idea about, just because of how accessible it all is. And like my dad, like after the the Jordan Neely, Daniel Penny thing happened, right?
Yeah.
I was fucking pissed about that shit because I live in New York. I've been in those situations, and I know for a fact that everyone on that train was ecstatic and relieved that
Oh yeah,
kid stepped forth to help them.
absolutely.
My wife's been attacked on the subway. Like, it's a fucking nightmare these days. So I couldn't keep my mouth shut on that one, and I wrote a long thread about all this shit. And it was the first time I've gotten like all the craziest leftists just like quote tweeting and saying heinous shit about me for days.
Yeah.
My friend Raph, who owns a gallery called 99 Canal, said there were 4 protesters outside. There were protesters outside his gallery because he's platformed me there a couple times. But beyond that,
Crazy.
I figure at the very least, at least this is just all happening on like such a micro scale. Who gives a shit? 2 days later, my dad calls me and he goes, Adam, what the fuck is everybody saying about you? This isn't right. And I'm like, what are you talking about, Dad? He goes, my old friend from work just sent me this thing on Twitter where people are talking about what a fucking asshole you are. I was like, holy shit. Your coworker from work somehow stumbled upon this and was like, oh, that name sounds familiar. Oh, wait, it's my old boss's kid. Like, it's huge, So it's simultaneously fractured but omnipotent. It's I feel like, with all the one thing that sucks is like philosophy is just so dead now, because philosophy can't really keep up with this. Like, it's going to take decades to really understand what it was like to live in 2023, 2022, 2015 and forth.
Yeah.
Because like this insanely fascinating thing happened after 2015 where it felt like I still feel like we're in 2015. It's 8 fucking years ago, and I feel like it's just been one perpetual line. And that's bizarre because so much shit has happened in my personal life. I fell in love. I got married. I had a dog. She passed away. My stepdad passed away. All of these life events happen. And yet I can't shake the feeling that history is just not even moving at all, and yet moving so rapidly that I can't see it. And I just don't think there's actually language to describe the feeling that we all have now. And it sounds like I don't mean to, it sounds almost arrogant to be like, oh, this time is so much more, because certainly living through the bubonic fucking plague or the fall of Rome or the civil rights movement or whatever, all had their hecticness and pain and terror, but that's not quite what we're dealing with. uh because everything's sort of muted, like we had
Yeah.
our alleged catastrophic event, COVID, and it was complete fucking
Yeah.
horseshit, just another event to propagandize and make money on.
Yeah,
um
that's one thing that I reflect on sometimes is like that I agree it's kind of felt like a straight line since 2015, and there's been these attempts sort of by I don't know the media, or maybe it's more I'm not even conspiratorial, it's a more unconscious collective instinct. So like this is the thing, this is the catastrophe. How many times it's been like World War III is just around the corner, whether it was some Iran stuff during the Trump administration, or now obviously Russia Ukraine is kind of another example of this, and COVID is the best
Most
example
definitely.
where it's
Yeah.
like supposed to be this calamity, and COVID was, it, irrevocably changed things, but nevertheless, it still was an extraordinary moment of anticlimax, and things really,
Yeah.
back to being they're kind of the same. Things went back to being the same in all the wrong ways, and they're like different in all the wrong ways. You know what I mean? Like there is change, but it's like this inscrutable thing that's almost hard to quantify.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Like,
weird.
certainly, I think the biggest thing is a lot of people lost their fucking minds, but that was just an acceleration of a thing that was already happening. I think I often think this, like clearly there was a conspiracy happening. It was like, I mean, the second I realized COVID might be bullshit or was bullshit is when they said that racism is the real pandemic. So go
Absolutely.
burn the city down, go burn it down because poor George Floyd. And I was like, but I thought this thing's like a fucking just makes your head explode. So, but even before that, because I was still living in Washington Heights. I'm in Queens now, but I was on 176th Street, and I lived 8 blocks from the Columbia Hospital. And wife and I would take the dog out for walks every single day, the fucking masks on. So
Yeah.
I would be like, let's walk by the hospital. I want to see if there's really this I want to see if there's like
dead bodies.
Yeah, basically. Yeah. And I'd go back there and it looked, business as usual, if not a little quieter than usual. So, but most people aren't like involved. They're not like conspirators. I think some, we're all just programmed by the media that we're programmed by. So, and a lot of people are so fucking bored, right? I think that is part of it. Like, this event kind of gave their life meaning. It was something to rally against, a threat. It's like it was like a new Cold War or something. Like, oh God, it's scary. We gotta stick together and stay in our houses. And then once you justify madness by saying it's some sense of moral self-righteousness, then it just gets so fucking out of hand.
Absolutely.
And like my mother-in-law, God bless her, she has some good instincts, like, but we would be talking about COVID, and she was like, should I get the booster? And I'd be like, no, don't fucking get it. It's just gonna fuck you up. And she's like, yeah, but I don't want to spread COVID. I live with my mother. And I'd be like, it doesn't stop the spread anyway. She goes, oh wait, that's right. And I'd be like, oh, I got through to her. And then the next morning, she's like, do you think I should get the booster? And I have to fucking do the whole thing over again. You can't undo that kind of programming. It was just like too fucking good and too constant, and people are pussies, I think like you get a little bit of fear, get a little bit of moral self-righteousness. You align it with politics,
Yeah. And
then
crucially,
you
give people freebies, right? So you you let most everyone stay home. And like I'm not gonna lie, that was fucking awesome.
Oh
That's
man,
like
so good.
like I mean, if you tie your kind of political movement to okay, regardless of how you feel about various hot button political issues, we're the party that's going to let you stay home. That's a good position to be in, actually.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I mean but it's not a good position. So like they kind of like targeted the kulaks, the small business owners, with surgical precision, because the people, few people who actually they needed to go to work to make money, they're the people who weren't going to vote for the Democrats anyways, because the Democrats take their money. The Democrats tell them how to run their businesses. And if you have a small business, you really don't want people trying to tell you how to run your business. So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's just something where they managed to like,
Yeah, the Democrats' politics are so hard to overcome. And I think, like, God, there's nothing more annoying than like dirtbag leftists who say that the Democrats are like weak or cowardly or bad at politics. It's like, no, they're fucking amazing at it.
yeah,
And they play it with precision every fucking election. Like, they have this huge base of out of work welfare class. Um,
absolutely.
Primarily, and then petty bourgeois knowledge workers, and then like a large fraction of the ruling class. So
Yeah,
you're basically just like, okay, let's just keep these people on welfare forever. They'll vote for us forever because they want that welfare coming. And if there's no incentive for them, so then we're not going to give them any incentive to make more money. In fact, there's so much bullshit. Like, dude, it fucking costs like if you make 35K a year, you'll get Medicaid. But if you make 50, all of a sudden your health insurance becomes like 1,200 a month,
yeah,
which means you have less money in your fucking bank account than you did when you made 35. I feel like that's
absolutely.
not by accident. That keeps the Democratic Party in power. They need that. They need
Yeah,
that collision of classes, and that's like a whole separate discussion. But
yeah.
um,
I mean,
politics is
COVID
like a
was,
mix of like politics is primarily a mix of strategies and then like human error and then inability to admit human error and to just like dig in deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper. And I feel
yeah,
like that's kind of the ruling paradigm of our day.
absolutely. It was this great COVID, this great red pilling moment for so many of us, and it's a trite thing to say at this point. But yeah, I think if when we look back and in the preparation for the episode, one of my notes was the COVID's effect on art, on media. How are we going to look back on what COVID did? And I think it's going to be really mixed because like it's like frankly to speak candidly, like Matt, you and I, we our project was in some respects a COVID project.
No,
It grew out
absolutely.
of yeah,
Right,
it grew
yeah.
out of having time and having this and that. And a lot of my political sentiments were born of this red pilling that occurred during COVID. So I think
Yeah.
it's going to be seen as
Definitely.
this great inflection point where a
Oh,
lot of
it's a
people
fault
woke
line
up.
without
Yeah,
question. It's absolutely a fault line. Myself, if COVID never happened, there's a good chance I'd still be a curatorial assistant and tour guide manager of the fucking Museum of Sex.
there you
That was my day
go.
job.
Yeah.
So I did that, 40 hours a week, and then wrote a couple essays here and there, made some art, but I had basically come to terms with a dead end job at
Yeah,
a wonky museum.
yeah,
Um, and I was like, whatever, I'm making 60K a year. Whatever. I'll have an apartment. I'll be fine. I'll try and not kill myself. Blah blah blah.
yeah. That's
Um,
like that's the best you're gonna get. So okay, let's do it. This is
yeah,
it.
and then COVID happened, and then the process started off slow, but then it became rapid because I got publicly fired by the quietest, and then that ricocheted and then I got fired by every place that I worked with for my ideological proclivities. Um, and that was cool because that was like, all right, fuck it. Now I'm just gonna do whatever the fuck I want. Like,
Yeah,
worst comes to worst, I'll just go back to the job at the Museum of Sex. I was fine before, and I'll be fine again. But because I had already I voted for Trump in 2016 and 2020, but I did so in 2016. It was purely like I was definitely still in my radical phase, like I just considered myself like the ultra commie or something, and I just like fucking hated Hillary Clinton and the Democrats so much that I was like, it just felt there was something so fun
Yeah, yeah, sure.
about marking Donald Trump on a presidential ticket.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but then by 2020, I legitimately started to see him as the
Yeah.
better option, not
Oh
even
yeah.
like the lesser of two evils, just like a flawed man
Yeah.
versus evil, right?
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it felt a lot better. But then COVID, like all the things that we kind of already understood to be true, the incessant lies, the fucking intense propaganda campaigns, um, everything seeming to always benefit pharma or the MIC or whatever. All that shit just became a bit more obvious. And it created its own kind of like subculture because if anyone else was seeing how obvious it was, there was like,
Yeah.
okay, I can connect with this person. Meanwhile, so
Exactly.
much of the world was just like willing to die on this hill. And I
Yeah.
saw a great comedy bit the other day. I was shocked, like a comedian actually saying true things in these days is like so funny. But he was like, you know what I learned during COVID? That if I lived during World War II in Paris, that I for sure would have been a Nazi collaborator because it appears that I do what I'm told.
That's wow.
It's
What was
funny.
this comedian? That's
I'll
probably the
try and
funniest joke I've
find
ever
it so
heard
you guys
about
can post it in
COVID.
the
Yeah.
show notes. But yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, that's good. Stand up isn't my favorite art form, but I don't know. That hits like the best kind of stand up joke, just like the right amount of shock. That's excellent.
Yeah, stand-up's rough, dude.
It's
It's
it's rough, but there's
yeah.
some gems. Yeah.
It's just like I feel like it's one of those things where people that are the best at it have been the best for like 2 or 3 decades now. There's no one who's better than Louis C.K. or Chris Rock or whoever. And
Yeah.
it's also
Yeah.
just like, man, it's a weird psychology to want to get up on stage and have people just like to just need people to laugh at you. It's a
Oh
very
yeah,
Yeah.
no. I came into an appreciation of like how like I almost started to like stand up more. It's still not my main thing, but like my main kind of art that I, take in obviously. But I came into a new appreciation for it when I realized like how much balls it how how much courage it takes to go out there and make people laugh. Like you're creating something out of nothing almost because you're just going out there as yourself. It's like,
yeah, especially at first, dude. Like, because when you're like Louis or whatever, people going there expecting to
know who
laugh.
you are. But yeah,
Yeah,
the cold open, which is how everyone starts in stand up.
yeah. I did it once. I did one stand-up routine in Tucson, Arizona.
All right.
Um,
No, yeah.
and I wrote a whole little 10-minute thing.
Hmm.
And I did it like on a dare, but I was also legitimately interested to see how it would go. It was at this like biker bar on Fourth Avenue there in Tucson, which is like, I don't know if you guys are familiar with Tucson, but it's a very strange sort of hippie hangover kind of city.
Oh, interesting.
Um
I didn't
yeah,
know that.
it's the one libtard city in all of Arizona.
Huh.
Um so I was at this like sort of like Grateful Dead on the radio, biker gang dudes hanging out, and I just got up there and did this dirty set, and I got some laughs or whatever, but I'm typically so confident, right? I've never been shy. Like that's just never been a problem. But something about having to make a joke nail in front of fucking people, I was filled with terror and anxiety. Like I had no fun doing this at all.
No, it's
Yeah.
And
not. Yeah.
yeah.
Like open, people within our orbit actually here in LA. This is my friend John Pellick does like a comedy open mic night in Hollywood every Thursday. I'll plug it for listeners who are in LA.
There we go.
Delicious Pizza in Hollywood. John Pellick does it, and some other people in this general scene. But anyway, I've been invited to try it, but I don't think I can do it. And I'm not usually that like shy either, and I like trying new things artistically, but I can't even can't even imagine.
You're probably a bit too pretty for comedy, to be honest. I think
Oh,
that was kind of my problem too.
well, thank you.
You know,
Well, it
it's
is a
not
thing.
like it's like if you're like a handsome man, people just don't think you should be funny for a living, you know, because
Yeah,
they just think you're being a dick at that point.
fair
Um,
enough. Yeah.
yeah, because comedy is like this thing where it's like insecurity being overcome by wit, and then that creates a certain
Right. That's why
confidence.
Louis C.K. is one of the funniest people.
Exactly. You know, he's always like, God, he is amazing.
Yeah.
I saw him. He actually directed a movie last year,
Really?
and
I didn't know that.
yeah, it wasn't fantastic or anything. It wasn't as good as the Louis show was, or like
Yeah.
Horace and Pete was, but it was cute, you know.
I liked his one that got canceled last minute. I love
Yeah,
he
with Chloe Grace
was
Moretz.
good. His critics
That
didn't
one was amazing.
He's pretty good. Yeah, Woody Allen esque. Yeah, no, he's good.
Yeah, I mean, the
Um,
thing that I notice about comedy and stand up is it's just so hard because you know that people are expecting you to tell a joke. And it's kind of like you lose the element of surprise, you lose the element of, kind of like just dropping in and, dropping the joke. And you're just like under this scrutiny while you're about to tell it or while you have to tell it. And I mean, I think increasingly it becomes a medium where you need to be someone who subverts the medium to actually succeed in it. So, like Sam Hyde,
oh,
one of the
he's
reasons,
amazing.
yeah, well, one of the reasons he's so good is because he's just like totally subverting the medium. He's going up there and like, telling things that makes liberals' heads explode. And that's hilarious.
He's a
And
hometown boy for me, dude.
is he from New York?
I grew up on Cape Cod.
Oh, all right.
He's from
Oh,
Fall
right.
River, which is like
Rhode Island.
3 25 minutes away from where I grew up.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you go to the show in New York the other day?
No, no. What was it on Saturday?
It was on Saturday. I would have went, but I just got a text about it like 20 minutes before the show. I'm
Yeah,
like, I
no,
didn't.
people were telling me to go, but Saturday is my late father-in-law's birthday, so
Mm, fair
my
enough.
wife
Yeah,
always gets like down on that day, and
yeah. That's not a
I try
Sam
to stay
Hyde
towards
day.
a homestead. No, yeah, not the way to cheer her up for sure.
No.
But I did go to a concert on Friday, which was pretty fun.
Oh, nice. Whereabouts?
It was in Greenpoint. Do you know Dominic Furnow? He's the noise musician of the Prurient Project,
It actually sounds familiar. The Prurient
and he
Project.
does Vatican Shadow, the
Okay.
techno project.
Huh.
Anyways, he's one of my best buds. So
Oh, neat.
he did a showcase for his label, so I had to go to that. But there was some really good performances. He's doing a showcase next year in Osaka, Japan, where
Oh,
I
there
will
we
be
go.
going for 12 days.
Uh, a little, yeah, a little samurai excursion.
Yeah. We're landing in Tokyo, staying there for 5 days, and then doing Osaka and Kyoto. But I'm psyched
Nice.
because I've always been obsessed with Japanese culture since I was like a teenager, between Japanese noise, Japanese horror films, Japanese photography,
Yeah,
writers like Mishima Kobo Abe or Ryu Murakami.
yeah,
So I'm really looking manga, So I'm just like stoked to soak it up. It's been on the bucket list for a long fucking time.
yeah. I've wanted to go to Japan for a while too. I never really had caught the Asian bug, Asian flu, but
I got that bug
yeah.
and
I've-
manifests in multiple ways.
But Japan, yeah. I mean, I've been to Hong Kong. But I don't particularly want to go to mainland China. Like, I wouldn't say no,
Yeah,
but yeah, I
I
do
don't have
want to
much
go to
interest in
Japan.
China. My Japan for sure. I'd like to see Thailand.
Yeah.
My dad actually lived 2 years in South Korea. He always talks about wanting to go back. He lost his virginity there, as he always tells me. He
Yeah.
was like 14. Um, my wife's Burmese, so I'm sure we'll go to Burma at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm definitely such like a massive fucking country and so different. It's weird that it even exists in some way. Oh, and I'd like to go to different version of Asia, of course, but I'd like to see St. Petersburg, Russia.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I'd like to see Russia too. I've never been.
What was the
Only
last trip you went on?
last trip was a wedding in Seattle last week.
Oh, you just got married.
But no, I didn't. My girlfriend's friends. So yeah, that was the last trip. But the last like real like vacation trip, we went to Antigua in May,
Amazing.
and that was great. I'd
Amazing.
never been in the Caribbean before, and the water, it's as clear as they say. You could like see
Yeah, it
your
is.
feet. It's amazing.
My family used to have a timeshare in St. Martin that
Nice.
it got
Right.
washed away in a hurricane and it wasn't insured, so
Oh,
that's
sucks.
gone. But I used to go. I went there every year from ages 14 to 18, and I fucking loved it. I learned
Yeah.
how to surf there. I learned how to parasail. Um, Nude beaches. The whole
There you
island
go.
is like very small, but also uh expansive
Yeah, yeah.
psychically or something. Um, and it's funny when we went there for the first time, I was super into. Oh no, I was younger. It was like 12 to 16 is when I went there. So when I first went there, I had my little CD Walkman,
Yeah.
and the records I was obsessed with were Tool's Enema, Wu Tang's 36 Chambers, um, and fuck. Oh yeah. Miss Sugar, Destroy, Erase, Improve. I was like a little metalhead back then. And when I hear Tool or Sugar or whatever now, I instantly find myself transported back to St. Martin.
Yeah. Yeah, no, when you hear those like music that you listened to in middle school, it really does take you back. It's crazy. Like whenever I hear Tonight Tonight, that's like the song that I kissed my high school girlfriend to. It's just like,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's a good one.
Did you see me on Billy Corgan's podcast?
No, dude, I didn't
No,
know that.
I'll
That's
check that
awesome.
out.
I did his and he did mine.
That's incredible.
Um
I didn't. Yeah.
yeah. I'll tell you, this is I'm not trying to brag too much, but whatever. It's hard to not tell this story without being a bragger
Yeah.
because it's so
No, go for it. Yeah.
fucking sick.
Yeah.
So, in August of 2022, I know because I saved the email. I was given a fan mail, a fan email. It said, "Hello, Adam. And it was funny because it was like written with kind of a resignation or something. Like he thought I'd be like too avant-garde or something. But it was like, I just read your book, Communions. It had a shit, man. I'll just fucking bring up the goddamn email. It's like right here.
Yeah.
Hi, Adam. Just a note to say that I read your book about art and artists and addiction. Um, Most likely because I'm still whatever. And really enjoyed the themes in writing therein and found much inspiration from it for work I'm currently working on, which was the SP record from last year.
Oh,
There's a song on there that's like directly linked to Communions.
wow.
For I am no fan of the dictum the artist must suffer to make great art, but certainly I am interested in the depth that you allude to. How one goes to those places, it will always be a furtive existential conundrum. As a side note, I feel like I came across your work on a recommendation from a mutual friend. So if we have a mutual friend, blah 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 blah. He still doesn't know how he found out about me. I first thought it was Alex Lee Moyer because she knows him too, but it wasn't.
Damn. That's
So yeah, that it was nuts because like Smashing Pumpkins was the second concert I ever went to as a kid. I went to the
yeah,
Melancholy
yeah.
tour with my dad and my brother in
That's awesome.
1996.
Yeah.
So like, dude, it was insane. My dad is a late Gen X, he's a fucking alt rock head. So I don't think I don't think he's been this proud of me. Like, because parents don't like, he doesn't really understand what the fuck I do,
Yeah. I
but he
get that.
understands getting fan mail from Billy fucking Corgan.
Yeah.
Dude, we went to my dad's his 60th birthday party last year, or 59th, and he was walking around with the email printed, showing it to all
That's
his
amazing.
former frat brothers, being like, my kid knows fucking Billy Corgan. And then yeah, Billy and I talked for a while. Wife and I went backstage at the SP show at Madison Square Garden last year and hung
Nice.
out. And then I did his podcast, and then he did mine. And we still bounce emails back and forth, but not as frequently as we once did. But yeah, that was like one of the true legitimizing, because you get a lot of the people that I once admired or looked up to have become friends, like the
Yeah, that's
aforementioned
incredible.
Dominic Furnow, even
Yeah.
Zach Davis, who's like, he used to be in a band I really like. Bradford Kessler, who directed our music video, he was an artist that I wrote about, and we became good friends. So that happens when you become an artist. But Billy fucking Corgan, get
Yeah.
the fuck out of here. I did not
Yeah. No.
ever see that coming. And it was like, it's not like if it was Steven Jenkins from Third Eye Blind or something, I'd be like,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, fair
that's
enough.
cool, but I probably wouldn't have even responded to the email. Like,
Yeah.
Billy Corgan is like a huge part of my childhood. I
Yeah,
know those
yeah.
fucking songs front to back, and being acknowledged in my existence by, because like when you're a kid, and this is the 90s, when rock and roll was everything.
Yeah.
This is, you worship this person when you're a kid, it goes beyond fandom. Like, you
Yeah.
worship this motherfucker. So, and now
No,
he's just like a
absolutely.
guy
Yeah.
that I bounce emails off of.
Yeah, I feel like Corgan and the Pumpkins were like one of the last bands to really be able to claim that level of fame and influence. Like one of the last like great rock bands in that sense. And
Absolutely.
they're still kind of underappreciated by like hipsters, or whatever hipsters are called nowadays, because they were
Faggots.
so like radio plays. But like, if you listen to the albums, it's just beautiful, beautiful work. I mean, especially from the '90s. I admit I haven't listened to his more recent stuff, but as I'm getting older, like I can appreciate the craftsmanship so much more.
Oh yeah.
Um, I say the same thing about the Red Hot Chili Peppers, which is more
Oh God,
controversial.
dude. Don't even
A
get me
lot of people,
started, bro.
you're a fan.
I've done like 4 fucking podcast episodes dedicated to Frusciante.
Yeah, well, Frusciante in particular is what
But I
really
like the
fascinates
Chai
me.
Peps too, I
Yeah,
consider it
yeah,
like Frusciante is obviously a visionary artist, and the Chai Peps are his day job, but no one does Wigger
exactly.
Bounce better than the Chai Peps.
Yeah,
They're some of the
yeah,
best
yeah,
Wiggers
yeah.
of all time.
Definitely. And you bring up the Frusciante thing. The fact that he is a visionary who is in like a sort of cock rock band, some kind of cock rock band. To me,
Wigger
that
cock rock.
in and of itself is interesting. Like we're so used to like people like the artistic visionaries being channeled to like do their own thing, which is great. But the fact that he was always with a band with like a very different vision and contributing rather than being like the main guy, it is a source of fascination for me for sure. And yeah, I think those '90s alternative rock bands, the level of they're thought of as almost like cliches now, but like it's if you don't like really open up yourself up to the music, you miss so much because the craftsmanship and the artistry behind it is so good.
Absolutely. Man, I went through my pretentious phase, There was like early 20s when if it didn't come out on Silk Breeze Records or if it had melody, If it wasn't Mers Bauer To Live and Shave in LA or Incapacitants or whatever the fuck, then I'd be like, nah, fuck that shit. But you lose that with age once you realize that creating a sound that is beautiful but also eminently relatable to the masses, it's like the hardest fucking thing to do, to make something that is great and popular. If you can, like, I have a lot of friends in noise music, and I just always tell them, and I'll be like, guys, look, like, what you do is cool. You make the sound, it's very loud. But let's face it, the genre does not got much more juice left in it. No one's going to be better than Macro Nymph or whatever it was in the 90s. And these shows, I saw the Chai Peps last year at the Phillies stadium, sold out to a crowd of 54,000 fucking people.
Yeah.
Halfway through the show, John sings an a cappella version of Elton John's How Wonderful Life Is, that one.
Yeah.
Before he does that song on the first of the reunion albums, when he sings the chorus, Heavy Winged, I think it's called, the entire fucking crowd, 54,000 people, losing their minds when Frusciante took the microphone. That cannot be replicated. The fucking electricity of a huge arena rock show is something that the Zoomers just sadly will never understand. They were robbed of that experience,
Absolutely.
Those were rites of passage for me. Like, my dad took me to see REM. He took me to see the Pumpkins. When I got a little older, 10 or 12 or so, I forced him to take me to see Korn and Deftones.
Yeah.
Korn live, dude.
Oh no, I've seen the footage. Sick. Yeah.
Unreal. I still get chills thinking about it.
No, I thought it's not that good of a documentary, but I saw their performance in the Woodstock '99 documentary. Like the itch to be there with that energy, just watching that. They're another great band. And, another direction we could take the conversation with this is like these alternative rock acts, and you said 54,000 people in the Chili Peppers stands, like, is when they're a genuinely artistic spark, which all the Chili Peppers have, but especially represented by Frusciante, like that was brought to a mass audience. Now we kind of live in this, like, everything is so fringe and niche that, like, the normie doesn't really get to appreciate art. But like a lot of these bands, and you could probably make a similar case about a lot of movies, like Tarantino, for example, are this tremendous, like, packaging of a very, like, legitimate artistic spark in a very popular format that I think is really hard to come by, like, post 2015.
Yeah, well, there will especially, like, we still got the people who take the shows really seriously. I'm sure the girls who go to them have a great time at a Taylor Swift concert, or
oh no, she's good too in a different way.
And I've seen some Kanye shows that were crazy. I still don't think it's quite the same for some reason. I don't think it's quite the same.
Well, I think also Kanye and Taylor Swift, we're talking about people who gained popularity before this inflection point of
that's true. Yeah. They're more millennial than Zoomer.
Yeah. And I think the whole saw the trope that culture is dead. And, well, if that's true, it's social media that killed it. And, I don't know that, we're going to really ever have a pop culture again, because we're all in our different silos.
Well, something like Tarantino is, like, unimaginable that ever happening, because he's still, like, the guy. Like, when his movies comes out, everyone goes and sees it, right? And everybody, like, looks forward to it. I just watched Pulp Fiction the other day for, like, whatever, the 1,000th time. That movie still shocks me how good it is. Like, that it even fucking exists. Like, the small details in that film just sing so loudly, like the diner sequence,
Yeah.
the 50s set diner, everything is so perfect in that scene. Like when they get up to dance, and like up to that point, you kind of forget that this is
Yeah.
Travolta, the greatest white boy dancer of all
Oh yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah.
And then they do their sequence, and he's like a million times better than the scene actually warrants him being.
Yeah,
Amazing. You know, when he shoots heroin, he's like, "You mind if I shoot up here? Muchos gracias."
yeah.
And then like the surf music starts playing. Boyd Rice actually was the music advisor on Pulp Fiction.
Oh,
But
Really? I didn't know that.
yeah. It's one of the things he'll talk about in interviews sometimes because Tarantino wasn't super. He wanted that sound, but he didn't know like who made it, right?
Yeah.
So Boyd's like he has like lots of weird obsessions, some of them being Tropicalia and surf rock. But yeah, so like you know, because I was looking at what's coming out for films, and there's like a fuck ton of movies that I'm legitimately excited to see. Like I'm dying to see Fincher's new film with Michael Fassbender as a hitman. The trailer looks phenomenal. Although Fincher's trailers always look phenomenal, and sometimes the movies aren't great, so that could be a white herring. I'm looking forward to Harmony's new thing. I'm looking forward to Bradley Cooper's. I'm even looking forward to Bradley Cooper doing Leonard Bernstein.
Yeah, no.
These things are all things like I'm looking forward to them, but they're not gonna fucking matter. You know, they're gonna come and go, and it's gonna be like I don't know. I don't think I know who won the Academy Award for like the last 5 years.
Yeah.
The last one I remember winning for sure is like I remember The Social Network lost to that fucking where God Prince or King George is like deaf and trying to overcome his like
King's Speech.
Yeah. That's like the last thing I fucking remember. That was like over a decade ago.
Yeah. I can tell you who won. I don't remember who won this year, which I should know, but yeah.
I just remember that Tar lost and being like, and that Kate Blanchett lost, which I was furious about. Hey, one thing I wanted to ask you guys about, even though it's kind of annoying because people always ask me and I get pissed, is did you guys see the Barbie movie?
I did, yeah.
Did you like it?
Go on, man.
I liked it, but I'm not like a full like bandwagon. Like this is really based and amazing. It's enjoyable. It was funny. The woke stuff didn't really bother me because that stuff is so much the air we breathe now anyway that I didn't budge on it too much. It didn't really bother me too much, and like it was done in a kind of funny way. Ryan Gosling was fun to watch. I'm glad that it was a cool cultural phenomenon. I appreciate the meme. That's basically what I'd say.
Yeah.
I co-sign on that completely. It was just like it was like a fun kind of meme experience. You come into the movie with all this baggage of like knowing the memes, knowing the, whatever. So yeah, the fact that it was, woke, it's like, well, as Matt says, everything is woke. So that didn't really, that didn't bother me. I mean, the thing that bothered me is like, it's kind of like a middling story, not very good in many respects, but like, I'm in it for the memes. I'm in it for the moments where where someone grabs her ass and she turns around and she does that face. And that's just like, that speaks to, I think, the current cultural moment, which is like, we want to see our media interact with our memes.
Yeah. See, I think it's being like dreadfully over intellectualized. And
no doubt.
Like I thought it was a passably entertaining popcorn flick. I thought Gosling was great, and whatever. I had a good time. I laughed at some of the parts. The use of the Matchbox 20 song I thought was a stroke of small genius.
Yeah, that was the funniest part.
Yeah, but one thing really pissed me off about it. And I was talking about this with Jack of the Perfume Nationals because he really liked it. I think Greta Gerwig is a fucking piss poor director. He was telling me, yeah, but it's not made by her. Like, he's like, these women, like Olivia Wilde, they're not actually directing the movies. It's just like the cinematographers and the screenwriters. Like, like for Olivia Wilde, that's 100% true. It's like a well-known Hollywood thing. Like her last movie, she was just getting fucked by Harry Styles the entire shooting, and the cinematographer was actually directing the scenes. But one thing about the response where there was all these like corny right-wing clickbait articles about like Barbie is trying to dismantle the matriarchy in subtle ways. I'm like, no, I think just like a centrist liberal people made this, and they don't know. There's so much happening in the discourse right now that they can't really make sense of it. So the movie's kind of all over the place.
Yeah, I agree.
But the same people who were writing those fucking articles were the same people who, when Tar came out, and Tar is legitimately a work of art that directly confronts libtardism.
Yeah.
Were the same people like, oh no, it's not actually a based film because Tar is the villain. Like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's only if you're watching it from the perspective of a libtard, because the whole point is that she gets destroyed for nothing.
Yeah.
That's what you're supposed to take away from that fucking movie. Why does it fucking matter that a female composer fucked around with one of her goddamn students? Like, this is the least controversial thing ever, and yet we watch her destroyed in the movie because we also know that's exactly what would happen in real life. And I also think the way they made it a woman, even though the movie is clearly about a man, was another stroke of small genius.
Yeah.
So it just shows that a lot of the people who kind of claim themselves to be like, we're the counter hegemony, they're still just as fried from all this shit as anybody else is. That they're going to fucking write 800 essays about a Barbie movie before they'll actually consider the best cinematic work of art. And same thing with Blonde, which was also a masterpiece. Both those movies came around at the same time and completely went over people's heads. Pissed me off.
No one talked about Blonde. Like, it's, you know what it is? It's kind of what you were talking about earlier. You know, for better or worse, internet discourse is the new art. You know, memetics are the new art. You know, it's easy to write about Barbie because Barbie's a meme. You can project anything you want onto a meme. And that's what a lot of, like, quote, criticism is just projecting stuff onto, like, mimetic phenomenon. You know what I mean? Rather than really engaging with art like Tar, which actually requires more thought and then, like, more brain power to actually read. And it's much easier just to, like, quote tweet, essentially, about Barbie.
Absolutely. Yeah, you know, like, I'm always just trying to figure out ways to crack it all, you know? Like I've written a few books now, but you know very much that they're going to be read on such a small scale that I really am always, because I think most people probably don't even know. A lot of my fans probably haven't even read my books. They're more into the public character, right?
Right. So many people even will buy books but not read them, and, like, we still appreciate the support, but, you know, it does take a lot to, like, actually get someone to read your book, for better or worse.
For
but
sure.
You bring up with, like, the public character thing. I mean, not to get too self-referential here, but we talked before we were recording, like, I'm helping with this Filthy Armenian event this week, and I've done a couple of my own events recently. Like, I think doing in-person stuff would be part of my, like, the closest thing I could say to, like, a way to sort of break out of, like, the discourse bowl is bringing in IRL. There seems to be a real hunger for that, and the way people end up kind of connecting and, like, kicking around ideas feels like it breaks the matrix a little. I don't know if you found that. Obviously, Adam, you were at NPC Fest. You've been involved with a lot of, like, the birth of the IRL dimension of this. I don't know if you have thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, for sure. Like, from my perspective, the thing I'm doing, like, in the immediate, well, I'm putting on an event for Safety Propaganda on October 25 in New York. So people should come to that. There will be,
looking forward to that.
Yes, there will be 5 people reading, myself included, Dan included. And
thank you for the invitation.
Absolutely. And at the end of that will be the first and perhaps, not sure yet, only live botch chatification performance. So if you want to see me shredded to the bone, oiled the fuck up, wearing a loincloth while screaming my head off. That would be the place to do it. But I also plan on doing I'm doing a lot more theater stuff.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so I've always wanted to get involved with film, and my friend Bradford is trying to transition from the art world to film. But getting finance from a movie is just it's a fucking like why the fuck would I do it, you know? Why would I suck? Maybe someday, you know, when I have sure thing financial sources, but to work 3 years on something that might not even happen and would leave me broke seems like a fool's errand. So what I'm doing right now is at the event that Matthew just mentioned, I will be staging a short play that I wrote.
Nice.
It is simply,
all right. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, it is just a chapter from a novel that I've been sitting on that should be out early next year on amphetamine sulfate. The editing process speeds up a bit, but I adapted a chapter from that book, and it's going to be like a 12-minute sequence. And this is something I'm going to be doing more going forward. I mean, basically, I could just, it's once I learned that it's like so simple to turn something into a play, I was like, Jesus, I have like thousands of pages of material already. So there's a new venue here in New York that I'm going to be doing some stuff at. It's going to be fun to flex my megalomania and like scream at actresses and make them feel bad about themselves. And yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing that stuff, man.
Yeah, you know, the performance, I relish performance. A lot of people really struggle with it, but I don't know, I fucking love it. I love character building.
Yeah.
The great thing about theater is, and there have been many articles written about this in terms of the potential of theater in the dissident right and dissident media, what have you. But as compared to film, it's much, much cheaper. It's practically free. I mean, like if you can, like, yes, if you're using equity actors, if you have like the big set design, okay, that does cost money. But if you just have a space and you have people who are going to act and get together, it's almost free. And what it crucially does is it brings people together. And that's like, well, what could be a more IRL event than a play?
You know, I think what happened is in the early to mid 20th century, it was just the avant-garde was the avant-garde. So, you know, writers, playwrights, painters, designers, they all hung out in Paris, whatever. They all considered themselves amongst friends, you know. But somewhere along the rise of Broadway, theater kind of became its own thing. Like it had less and less overlap with the other disciplines. But I think now, because everything is dead, like the most important, like biggest money making artists in the world, nobody gives a fuck about.
Yeah.
Largely because they're bad, but mostly because there's just too many like paintings.
Yeah,
we've seen every painting. No one needs to make one. And no offense to my friends who are painters. I'm surrounded by paintings right now. I don't know why I'm talking so much shit. But I think because the culture is so disintegrated anyways, that now as long as you're just like you can just find your zone, your own little fracture, as Kazemi would say, and build and give it whatever the fuck you want to give it. And what got me so stoked on writing or turning some of the fictions that I write into plays is actually this one fucking playwright. Are you familiar with a writer named Kevin did a show on her, but her name was Sarah Kane.
I'm only familiar with her through Kevin, but yes.
Likewise, yeah.
So way like shortly before the pandemic, this British writer and critic that I somewhat admire named Charlie Fox wrote a thing about her, and I picked up her book and was just like absolutely blown away. She does basically a hybrid of Jacobean tragedy with something more expressionistic and contemporary, and it's brutal shit, like live rapes happening right on stage, war crimes committed. And it's great to just read the books, but I mean, I've watched some of the plays on YouTube and they're just spectacular. Like, this needs to be popular again. Like,
yeah,
it doesn't take much. Just get some people who can deliver a line and look good on stage and tell a story. And people are looking to get out. How many fucking readings can we all go to? We need to incorporate other sorts of expressions into these central hubs, and that's what I fucking plan on doing.
There we go.
I think yeah, inspiring.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like there's a real renaissance in playwriting and plays in New York City and elsewhere. And it's, not never, but like there's a real bifurcation between like the type of stuff that is produced commercially and the type of stuff that people are writing in the counterculture. And it's just like, really energizing for people who are actually writing stuff that's real.
Absolutely. You guys, you want to ask a couple more questions, or you want to cut the cord?
I think at this point, I mean, unless you have anything else you want to plug, and I don't mean to talk over Matt here, but it is where we are. It's 12 o'clock. So
yeah, I'm doing the ants in the pants thing right now because I've been clamping it.
It's about time to mosey on, I think.
This was a great conversation. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I'll just plug the usuals. Safety Propaganda's primary landing page is safetypropaganda.substack.com. Our podcast, System of Systems by Safety Propaganda, is just systemofsystems.patreon.com. My books are available on Amazon and all those fucking places. And whatever. I'm on Twitter.
There we go. Adam Lehrer, check all of this stuff out.
Yes.
And it's been a pleasure, dude.
All right, guys. This was a lot of fun. Appreciate it. I will see Matthew. I'll see you this weekend.
Yeah, I'll see you this weekend. It'll be great to meet in person.
And Dan, I'll see you next month, or are you coming this weekend too?
Unfortunately, not this weekend, but you'll definitely see me next month, and we're gonna talk soon because I'm gonna be
coming on my podcast.
There we go.
All right, man. I'm almost done with your book. I've been enjoying it.
Oh, thank you, dude.
Yeah, looking forward to talking about it, and thanks for having me on, guys.
Absolutely.
All right, talk soon.
Talk soon. Bye.